What kind of banana republic have we just become? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is another declaration of truth from your host, Terry A. Hurlbut. The last few days have seen some developments that should frighten any patriotic American. Bluntly, this is banana republic type stuff, and I apologize right now to the Republic of Ecuador, the largest exporter of bananas in the world, for even suggesting that anything like that is even happening in their country. For the first time in history, an elected public prosecutor threatens to arrest a former president of the United States, and a state-level public prosecutor at that. Not even a United States attorney or his assistant. One thing if the charges had any validity, but they do not. Thus, this prosecutor threatens to show monumental disrespect to half the country, and might seriously damage his party's standing with the other half. He absolutely brings disgrace upon his office by even suggesting such a thing, much less communicating to a person of interest through a public medium. Before I tell you what this prosecutor is doing, what charge he's trying to bring, whether anybody will really think less of Donald Trump for this, and how people are reacting, and finally, what parallel I draw, I do want to shout out to the prime sponsor of this channel, which is Conservative News and Views. Link in the description. And be sure to check out the awesome CNAV Store. Scroll down near the bottom of that link. Lots of great merchandise there. Especially this t-shirt that I have chosen for today, which depicts Donald Trump as the great MAGA king. And yes, this is all about Trump and how afraid of him the Democratic Party now is. One more thing. If you like what you're about to hear, you can like this video. You can also click the bell icon to get a notice every time I come up with a new one. In fact, do you see the new icon, the heart shape with the US dollar sign in it? That's the super thanks icon. If you really want to keep these videos coming, click that and leave me a tip. Any currency will do, so long as it's legal tender. Now then, President Trump sounded the alarm beginning at 6:55 a.m. Eastern Time Saturday with a pair of truths from Truth Social, which he owns. In fact, I have links in the description of those two truths, plus two others that I'll mention toward the end of this video. Here is the text of the first one. Quote, "Our nation is now third world and dying. The American dream is dead. The radical left anarchists have stolen our presidential election, and with it, the heart of our country. American patriots are being arrested and held in captivity like animals, while criminals and leftist thugs are allowed to roam the streets, killing and burning with no retribution. Millions are flooding through our open borders, many from prisons and mental institutions. Crime and inflation are destroying our very way of life," unquote, Donald Trump. The patriots he's talking about are languishing in prison and, by many accounts, suffering maltreatment over the January 6th event. I've left a link in the description to a keyword search prompt that will retrieve from CNAV every article that carries a January 6th event tag. But then Trump continued with this, quote, "Now illegal leaks from a corrupt and highly political Manhattan District Attorney's Office, which has allowed new records to be set in violent crime and whose leader is funded by George Soros, indicate that with no crime being able to be proven, and based on an old and fully debunked by numerous other prosecutors fairy tale, the far and away leading Republican candidate and former President of the United States of America will be arrested on Tuesday of next week. Protests take our country back," close quote. Now, I hear you asking, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot is he talking about? What fairy tale? Well, the fairy tale is Trump's allegedly paying the alleged amount of $300,000 to his alleged paramour, Stormy Daniels, to keep quiet. Well, the problem is Trump might or might not have paid a lesser amount long ago, but the point is she didn't keep quiet. In fact, she had the bad sis to sue him, and usually no one sues Donald Trump and wins. Spoiler alert, she lost. Worse yet, her attorney, Michael Avenatti, recently landed in prison for 14 years for embezzling money from 4 other clients. Exactly 1 week ago today, no one was expecting the Manhattan DA to get an indictment on this matter. In a Sunday, March 12th interview with CNN's Anderson Cooper, the New York Times' Maggie Haberman mentioned the key weakness. She said, quote, "This is a misdemeanor that they're trying to push up to a felony," close quote. She further suggested that the case could end with the judge refusing to allow a felony count. Furthermore, even a Manhattan jury could deadlock on such a case. Dick Morris weighed in too. He predicted that, quote, "If New York District Attorney Alvin Bragg indicts former President Donald Trump, nobody will care. It won't cost Trump a point, and it might even redound to his benefit by showing the world the insane depths to which anti-Trump fanatics will ascend to stop him from becoming president again," unquote, Dick Morris. But I hear you ask, mightn't anyone care? Well, that isn't the question. The question is, will anybody care who hasn't already made up his mind between Trump or any other person now seeking the nomination? Now, Morris did write, and again I quote, "There are indeed some never-Trumpers who will seize on such an indictment to write, yet again, his political obituary," close quote. One of these is former Representative Adam Kinzinger, the rhino from Illinois, formerly of the infamous January 6th committee. He confidently predicted that on-the-fence voters would move on because, and I quote, "even if the charges were unfair, there was too much drama involved," unquote, Adam Kinzinger. In your dreams, buddy. Besides, the Democrats euchred you out of your seat when Illinois lost a district. I've had the last advice I'll have out of you, and I'm sure I speak for many others. Why don't you go hang out with Liz Cheney, the rhino from Wyoming? Maybe she will let you waste her time with your wishful thinking. No one else will or should. Back to Donald Trump. Morris insisted that people would forgive any public figure in his position, even if he did what Bragg alleges, and whether the doing broke the law or not. That goes double, given Bragg's track record, like those of the public prosecutors in all too many American cities today, of going soft on crime. Vincent T. Bugliosi, the man who prosecuted Charles Manson and his family for the murders of Sharon Tate and several others. The man who tried 106 cases and lost once, and later wrote a book titled Outrage, excoriating his eventual successor for blowing the case against O.J. Simpson. Well, Vince must surely be spitting in his grave now that his current successor and counterparts like Bragg will not even bother to prosecute real violent offenders. That's what Trump was talking about in his second truth, and no one has denied that. But Bragg will actually seek to arrest Donald Trump. In fact, he campaigned on bringing an indictment against the former president. Now that could be an argument against the popular election of public prosecutors. So, how well do you think that's going on? Not well. And whoop! Don't mention that name. There are certain denizens of Twitter whom I refuse to give the time of day. So, other than that person, well, the Manhattan DA did not comment directly on the case. Most public prosecutors never do. But he took Trump's call for protest as a threat and sent an email in response. I have links in the description to the anchor and trailing tweets of a 3-tweet thread from a user named Erica Orden. She is the legal reporter at Politico. She quotes an email that Politico obtained. Now, where and how, I don't know. But remember, Politico got Sam Alito's first draft of his Dobbs opinion. Here is what the DA said to his staff. Quote, I'm sure you've seen the ongoing press attention and public comments surrounding an ongoing investigation by this office. Please know that your safety is our top priority. We have full confidence in our outstanding security staff and investigators, along with our great OCA and NYPD colleagues, and will continue to coordinate with all of them. We do not tolerate attempts to intimidate our office or threaten the rule of law in New York. Our law enforcement partners will ensure that any specific or credible threats against the office will be fully investigated and that the proper safeguards are in place so that all 1,600 of us have a secure work environment. This office is full of the finest public servants in the country. I am committed to maintaining a safe work environment where everyone is able to continue to serve the public with the same diligence and professionalism that make this institution so renowned. In the meantime, as with all of our investigations, we will continue to apply the law evenly and fairly and speak publicly only when appropriate. If you have any questions or concerns, please contact your supervisor and we will work to answer them as quickly and thoroughly as possible. Thank you, Alvin. End of memo. Tall words, Alvin. How do you explain those leaks Trump was talking about? Have you fired the employee who leaked the plans to seek Trump's extradition from Florida? If you have, I haven't heard. And where do you get off sounding like the great Bob Morgenthau, a giant among public prosecutors, when you aren't fit to tie his shoes? And tall words indeed about safety when you have left New York City become almost as dangerous as a war zone. Diligence, professionalism, renown, you're a pygmy trying to stand on the shoulder of a giant, and you will never be convincing in that role. Do you hear me, Alvin? 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 Alvin! And don't accuse me of inciting either. I don't play that game. I am absolutely sure that no Trump supporter would even think of harming a hair on the head of any of your staff. But some of those thieves and murderers you have let loose, now they are your real problem. But I digress. Now, if you want to know what Trump supporters really do, well, they did have a rally on Fifth Avenue. They weren't catcalling in front of the DA's office. They were standing in front of Trump Tower showing their support. That is what patriotic Americans do. See the tweet and play the video. It's the third one in the reaction list, which I admit is pretty long. 24 tweets in all. Before I go any further, I want to shout out to a sponsor who can really help you through the economic storms to come. That sponsor is oursilverlines.com. Do you feel like you're working harder for your money just to get by? You are not alone. The fluctuating economy, employment issues, and unexpected changes in life have left many families struggling over the past few years. Collecting gold and silver can help shield you against many of these challenges. But if you're like me many years ago, you don't know where or how to start. Our Silver Lines helps by connecting you with thousands of members who are learning the secrets to creating and protecting true wealth by collecting precious metals. Now, whether you just want to collect rare and unique coins or take advantage of the business opportunities this company provides, either way, they can help you learn to live an exceptional life. Visit oursilverlines.com. Learn how you can build a legacy for your future. Now, Lee Zeldin, who came close to becoming New York State's next governor, said Bragg would not have lasted beyond the first day of a Zeldin administration. His is the next tweet. Now, oddly enough, Mike Pence protested the Trump arrest possibility too. The SiriusXM Patriot account has a video of him saying it's the Russia hoax all over again. A user named Paul Ingracia encouraged people to call the DA's office to urge them to drop any planned action. He gave the number, 212-335-9000. I'll have more on that later. Now that is right out of the tweet. Laura Loomer, almost at once, wrote her own article expressing her outrage and shared the link on Twitter. Then, when Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida said nothing about the prospect of Trump, a Florida resident, facing extradition to New York, Laura Loomer called him out, reminding him that when a public prosecutor in another state applies for extradition of a Florida resident, that's the governor's business. So he ought to say something. Why hasn't he? And as I record this, I am still waiting. And so is she. In fact, she quoted an earlier tweet of hers that contained an article in the Independent of the UK going back to June of last year and saying DeSantis might have wanted that January 6th Bill of Attainder Committee to get Trump indicted. We still don't know one way or another about that. Now, Laura Loomer did try to organize a rally at Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate. Then she changed her mind and deleted that tweet, but left one telling people to show their loyalty wherever they were and wear their Trump gear on Tuesday, which means she is calling for spontaneous shows of support nationwide and not anything targeting the Manhattan DA's office, at least aside from the kind of calls people can always make to their legislators or other elected officials. And no crank calls either. I do not recommend anything of that kind. She also observed in another tweet, and I quote, "It's sad to see so many people have been terrified into not embracing their First Amendment right. Peaceful assembly and peaceful protest is constitutionally protected. There's nothing bad about waving Trump flags and holding signs in support of President Trump. It's 100% legal," unquote, Laura Loomer. And that goes double when you are not blocking traffic and not even showing up in front of the other guy's office. Mr. Ingracia then recommended more phone calls in another tweet. This time, he gave the number of Governor DeSantis' campaign arm, 813-254-3369, and of the Florida Governor's Office, 850-717-9337. The suggestion, call him and demand that he, as governor, denounce what the DA is doing, which Mr. Ingracia and Trump himself, by the way, are calling a witch hunt. Representative Kevin McCarthy of California, Speaker of the House, did not hold his peace as Governor DeSantis held his. He actually promised his own investigation into the Manhattan DA and whether he is using any federal funds to finance this so-called investigation of Trump. Laura Loomer took positive notice of that, but she also noticed that Nikki Haley was also keeping silent. After 24 hours, nothing but crickets from her or DeSantis. Now, Vivek Ramaswamy, a clear dark horse candidate for the nomination, left a stronger expression of outrage. Now understand, technically he's running against Trump also. But here is what he said, quote, "A Trump indictment would be a national disaster. It is un-American for the ruling party to use police power to arrest its political rivals. If a Republican prosecutor in 2004 had used a campaign finance technicality to arrest then-candidate John Kerry while Bush and Cheney were in power, liberals would have cried foul, and rightly so. Principles go beyond partisanship. Let the American people decide who governs. This will mark a dark moment in American history and will undermine public trust in our electoral system itself. I call on the Manhattan District Attorney to reconsider this action and to put aside partisan politics in service of preserving our constitutional republic. Prosecutors should apply the same standards as they would to anyone else. This wouldn't have been a criminal prosecution in any other case. A misdemeanor at most. No doubt about it. Our entire country is skating on thin ice right now, and we cannot afford to politicize the justice system, or else we will reach our breaking point. Unquote, Vivek Ramaswamy. Nor, apparently, was he through with that. He called out DeSantis and Haley both on what he regarded as an unbecoming silence. Seems DeSantis was stopping by a tavern on St. Patrick's Day. Well, Vivek reminded him that he loves St. Patrick's Day too, but the ruling party is looking to use police power to lock up its biggest rival, and Republican donor-class favorites, as he called them, are deafeningly silent. Stand up or step aside, Vivek said. Now that's what I call genuine. And in another tweet, he specifically called out DeSantis and Haley and called on them both to join him in a conference call at 9 a.m. Eastern Time yesterday. Now the trouble was, nobody was in the office, so we'll see what happens this morning, probably about 2 hours after this video comes out. After Trump apparently announced on St. Patrick's Day that he would hold his first campaign rally in Waco, Texas on the 25th, Laura Loomer quoted the article in a tweet, observing the symbolic nature of the choice of venue. Do an internet search on the names Branch Davidian and David Koresh if you want to learn more. Then she canceled her own event, saying she didn't want to make any unpleasant scene in West Palm Beach. I think that was eminently sensible. In fact, I think she just dodged several bullets, figuratively, certainly. No more false flag pseudo operations, if you please. We had one on January 6, 2021, and I find one quite sufficient. Speaking of, someone accused Trump of leaving January 6 protesters in the lurch. Laura Loomer said that was a lie. That Trump did pay legal fees for many of those people and released a tribute song called Justice for All, donating the proceeds to their legal defense funds. Enough said. When DeSantis still did not break his silence, Paul Ingrassia finally said, "That's it, Ron's done." Apparently, some of his supporters are defecting to Vivek Ramaswamy and the other candidates. George Beasley left a video showing just how popular Trump is. He's at the NCAA Wrestling Championships in Oklahoma, and he got a standing O. A fellow Florida resident warned DeSantis, "Break your silence on Trump or you've already lost." He said this was 1,000 times bigger than any primary and hinted that this tells whether our country is free or leftist totalitarian like the old communists. Then another user summed it up perfectly. DeSantis' silence was exactly the reason he could never support the governor. I'm vulgarizing here. Finally, Jack Posobiec urged people to buy copies of Trump's single, Justice for All, about the January 6 protesters, noting the same thing Laura Loomer did about where the proceeds go. Now, my analysis. The closest parallel to this situation in which Trump finds himself, aside from republics with export economies and unstable government, might be the war between U.S. Marshal Wyatt Earp and his brothers Morgan and Virgil, and cattle rustler Ike Clanton and his gang in Tombstone, Arizona in 1881. In the same year in which President James Garfield took a bullet in the back from somebody who felt cheated out of a patronage job, Wyatt Earp and his brothers and their friend John Henry Doc Holliday killed Ike Clanton's brother Bill and the two other brothers Frank and Tom McClary. After that, Ike actually filed murder charges against the Earps. Justice of the Peace Wells Spicer held a 30-day hearing. That hearing included perjured testimony from Ike Clanton, crooked Sheriff Johnny Behan, and other witnesses. But still other witnesses, including a totally disinterested one, gave them the lie. In the end, Justice Spicer acquitted the Earps and Holliday, saying they all acted within the law. Well, Ike's gang did not stop, however. They maimed Virgil Earp in an ambush, and they killed Morgan Earp with a classic back shot. After that, Wyatt Earp went after the Clanton gang personally, with Johnny Behan mounting a pursuit worthy of Victor Hugo's Javert. Alvin Bragg is shaping up to play a modern Johnny Behan to Trump's Wyatt Earp. This, although Trump is not accused of taking a life, not at all. We see here a bitter political feud leading to abuses of office, all on one side. But more than bitterness is at stake here, because the abusive side lets real criminals go free. This should tell all Americans whose side either party is on. Nor do the parallels stop here. In Tombstone, Ike Clanton had his sympathizers, who staged an elaborate funeral for Bill Clinton and the McLaurys. They treated those men like heroes, despite what they really were. Then, as now, some people apparently cared little for law and order, or even for the rules of honorable combat. Today, Trump represents ordered liberty and the protection of life, liberty, and property. Alvin Bragg has let thieves and murderers take over his city. A thief is an irregular wealth redistribution agent, and a murderer is an irregular population thinner. I quote Trump, "I find it very hard to believe that a racist, Soros-backed DA who lets murderers, rapists, and drug dealers walk free and who has presided over the biggest violent crime wave in the history of NYC is using the power of his office to persecute, indict, and prosecute a former president of the United States of America for no crime. The witch hunt never ends, but we will make America great again. Triple exclamation marks, close quote." For that matter, the case against Trump will likely include perjured testimony, another Tombstone parallel. Here's Trump's last truth. Quote, "Just reported that the most important witness to go before the New York City grand jury, a highly respected lawyer who once represented convicted felon, jail-burned serial fake storyteller and liar Michael Cohen, will be doing so tomorrow afternoon. The information he will present will supposedly be conclusive and irrefutable. Witch hunt! Triple exclamation point, close quote." For every American, I'd say now is the time to decide. Links to the description of the article, to Trump's 4 truths, to the CNAV January 6 keyword search prompt, to 24 tweets in reaction to the report, to my Declarations of Truth Twitter account, and to conservative news and views. I've also left links to the awesome CNAV Store and to oursilverlines.com, as I also mentioned. You know already about how to like a video, turn on notifications, and leave a tip. On the end screen, I'm going to leave a subscribe link to my channel and links to 3 videos from other influencers that I've already seen about the possibility of a Trump arrest, how that is likely to backfire on Alvin, and an excellent video from Officer Brandon Tatum telling everybody to stand down, as Laura Loomer did, and I think Brandon gave very good advice. This is Terry A. Hurlbut delivering another declaration of truth and reminding you to let the truth set you free.